Some people get rejected 10 times and keep going. Some lose money, fail publicly, get laughed at, ignored, betrayed, and somehow come back even stronger. Meanwhile, others give up after one bad week. So what's the difference? Talent? Luck? Connections? No. Psychologists have spent decades studying elite athletes, military survival experts, entrepreneurs, and people who overcame impossible odds. And again, they discovered one strange pattern. The people who become unstoppable do not experience pain differently. They interpret it differently. That changes everything. Nearly everything in life is temporary. The problem is that many people treat setbacks as permanent and give up. This is the difference between winners and losers. Winners see setbacks as feedback, while losers see them as a sign to quit. Once you understand this psychological trick, you will begin to see why certain people rise while others collapse. And more importantly, you can train yourself to use it too. Years ago, researchers studied two groups of people facing extremely difficult situations. One group saw struggle as proof they were failing. The other group saw struggle as proof they were growing. The second group consistently outperformed the first, even when they started with fewer advantages. Think about that carefully. The event was the same. The interpretation was different. One person sees rejection and thinks, "This proves I'm not good enough." Another sees rejection and thinks, "This is part of the process." One quits, the other becomes dangerous. That is the psychological trick. And once you see it, you start noticing it everywhere. Take Thomas Edison. When thousands of experiments failed in his attempts to create the light bulb, he famously reframed the situation by saying he had not failed, but had found thousands of ways that did not work. Most people hear that quote and think it sounds motivational, but psychologically, it is incredibly powerful. Because Edison protected his identity from failure. That is what unstoppable people do. They refuse to emotionally merge with defeat. Failure becomes information, not identity. And history is filled with people who mastered this mental habit. Sylvester Stallone was rejected repeatedly before Rocky was made. He was broke, ignored, mocked. At one point, he reportedly sold his dog because he had almost no money left. Most people would have interpreted those moments as evidence their dream was over. He interpreted them as temporary. That distinction changes lives. Here is where this gets even more interesting. Psychologists discovered something called cognitive reframing. In simple terms, it means changing the meaning you attach to events. Highly successful people do this constantly. A failed business becomes an education. A setback becomes training. A disaster becomes a turning point. That is not delusion, that is mental survival. Because human beings do not break purely because of pain. They break because of the meaning they attach to pain. And the modern world is quietly conditioning people to attach catastrophic meaning to everything. A failed relationship means, my life is ruined. A bad month financially means, I'll never succeed. A criticism online means, everybody hates me. But unstoppable people interpret reality differently. They zoom out, they think longer term, they emotionally detach from temporary events. And that creates enormous psychological power. Because when you stop treating every obstacle like the end of the story, you become very difficult to stop. I want to ask you something. Have you ever gone through a painful moment that later became the turning point of your life? Maybe a rejection, a breakup, losing money, being ignored, being underestimated. Because sometimes the moments that nearly break us are the exact moments that build us. So I want you to leave a comment below with these 4 words, pressure created who I am. And if you've gone through something difficult recently, tell us your story too. This channel is growing because people here are thinking differently from the crowd, and your comment might genuinely help somebody else realize they are not alone. Most people wait to feel motivated before they act. Unstoppable people act before they feel ready. That is why they move faster than everyone else. And over time, action creates momentum. Momentum creates confidence. Confidence creates identity. Identity changes destiny. This is why people often think successful individuals possess magical confidence. Usually they do not. They simply trained themselves to move while uncertain. That is a huge difference. Think about elite athletes. Think about soldiers. Think about entrepreneurs who built companies after multiple failures. Most were scared, most doubted themselves, but they kept moving, and eventually movement itself became power. This also explains why overthinking destroys so many people's potential. Overthinking magnifies fear. Action shrinks it. The unstoppable person is not necessarily braver. They simply spend less time negotiating with fear. That is one of the hidden secrets of high performers. And there is one final piece to all this. Unstoppable people usually stop seeking constant approval, because the need for approval makes people fragile. The moment your identity depends on applause, criticism becomes emotionally devastating. But once somebody reaches the point where their mission matters more than people's opinions, their energy changes completely. History is filled with people who were mocked before they were admired, rejected before they were respected, ignored before they became influential. The world often resists people before rewarding them. And the people who eventually win understand this. They expect resistance. They do not interpret it as proof that they should stop. They interpret it as proof they are moving. So if you remember one thing from this video, remember this. The psychological trick that makes some people unstoppable is not that they avoid pain. It is that they refuse to let pain define them. They reinterpret setbacks. They detach identity from failure. They keep moving before they feel ready. And eventually, while everyone else is waiting for certainty, they build momentum. That momentum changes everything. Because in the end, the people who transform their lives are rarely the most gifted. They are usually the ones who refuse to stop interpreting temporary defeat as permanent failure. And that changes the entire game. If this video resonated with you, give it a like and subscribe so we can continue this amazing journey together.